Today's agenda is to understand Git and GitHub in detail, and we will also try to differentiate what exactly the difference is between these two, Git and GitHub. And during the sessions, we try to find out answer of few queries, very specific to like configuration management relation with Git, how Git is associated with uh, configuration management, which is one of the concept of project management, what exactly the Git is and GitHub, why we need Git, do we have other alternative that we can use, is there any specific um, that triggering us to proceed or started using Git for learning. Since Git is a based of distributed version control system, so we will also understand what exactly the means of distributed version control system model. Apart from, we will also understand like is there any relation between Git and GitHub, because of if you see like both of started from the Git, so uh, this question will always initially when someone is started learning, they will be confused whether they will say something like a Git or GitHub, both are the same or both are differ. If same, then why we are saying sometimes we say like Git, or sometimes we say GitHub. So we will also try to explore or find out the answer of these questions during the sessions. So moving to the next slide. Okay, so this is somewhat like busy slide. Uh, Here we are trying to understand, or we are trying to find out how the Git is associated with project management. So it's quite busy, but no need to bother about. This is most of related to the project management. But before actually understanding the Git, what I believe we should understand this concept also. So we are not going to go in detail to understand about the project management. This is a very like a vast concept, but in short, because of I just try to relate the project management things with Git. So just quickly summarizing the things. So project management, under the project management, we have one concept like configuration management. What exactly the configuration management is? It is a set of process policies and tools, right? Or so if this is the general concept, not very specific to software, but the same thing if we relate with the software, then this we can say like SCM, and in day-to-day life we refer some SCM tool or something. So if the configuration management uh, specifically relate to the software, then we can say it's like software configuration management. What exactly it is? This is a task. CM is a task of tracking and controlling changes in the software. So under the project management, we have a configuration management kind of activity. If we specialize this activity in a form of software, then this is a this we can say somewhat like software configuration management, and the role of or we can say the kind of processes, policies and tools Those are part of this software configuration management is to track and control the changes in the software. So when new project is introduced, definitely the project management comes into the picture, and project management has many other things, but one of them is configuration management. And since the project is specific or related to the software, so here we are focusing on software side. And during this activity, we have to define certain processes, policies, identify some tools available in the market for what, like to defining processes, policies, and tool just to track and control the changes in the system. Okay. And this configuration management impact all the phases of software development lifecycle. So this is this will impact like these processes, policies, and tools that we adopt in organizations impact all the phases of SDLC. Like it's like requirement gathering, design, document development, testing, deployment, and maintenance. So what exactly means it? So the configuration management is the task to track and control the changes. So we are just trying to relate what exactly the track and control the changes. So during requirement gathering, for example, we have to uh, create some documents like SRS and all. That document, if being changed because of some internal requirement or because of some customer requirement, those to be tracked. Right? And if some design is being changed in between or ongoing, then that to be tracked in a form of design in design phase. During the development, if source code is being changed, that also to be tracked. So this is impacted in development. Testing, so kind of some QA testing, UA testing, um, or EOT and system integration testing and all. So during this exercise, the artifact that we are capturing to be tracked, like uh, what all test cases those were written and how many of successfully executed and all to be tracked. Deployment side, like which version we are going to build and whether the correct version is going to build or package uh, uh, while the delivery. Likewise, once things are delivered, then whether the correct version is being deployed, and that all these being tracked, and each and every phase of the SDLC to be impacted, and that and to be changed or impacted, and that to be tracked during this configuration management. And this to be done like tracking changes and controlling the changes to be done with the help of processes and policies and tools. Okay. So now how these processes and policies and tools work together. So first of all, the configuration management, first of all, we have to identify software configuration identification. So what exactly the configuration item, right? Software configuration item identification is the first task that to be performed under the configuration management. So what exactly the configuration item? Since we are focusing or targeting the software part only, so we can consider like this is a service component or infrastructure element or the other item that need to be managed in order to ensure a successful delivery of service. Fine. So the end product while delivering the end product, if something that is crucial and that can impact the end delivery, that to be track and manage and control, and that particular item to be considered as a configuration item. For example, if we talk about the SRS document, because this SRS document is very crucial and the customer is very much in line with this, and customer was agreed what they exactly looking for, and this document definitely required when we are final delivering the things. And customer, let's suppose during the delivery customer is saying, okay, this is what we didn't ask, or this is what the feature we never demanded, then that software requirement specification document will help us to track, right? If something some design phase, when the design was happened and the final output, that final development was happen, if developer is saying, okay, we develop um, uh, everything as mentioned in the design documents, if in case the design documents uh, we can also understand in in a different way. Let's suppose due to some other due to some mistake, some older version of design document uh, pass on to the development team, and the development team started working on the document, started development by using the old design document, and they finally completed the development. And the final stage, when the product was tested and during quality phase or testing phase, it's been observed the desired output is not the expected behavior, right? So when the further it's been investigated, then we observe, unfortunately, the design document shared with the development team was the wrong one. So tracking the changes and all to be always plays a crucial role. So this is something like, so all these kind of documents, uh, those are impacting the end uh, result or end product called as a configuration item. So this is under the project management, the first role or first task of configuration management is to identify the configuration item. Okay, so the configuration item to be identified, this is the first job. So like design documentation, test material, um, software tools, source code, executable code, libraries, data dictionary, and the documents. So these you can consider as a configuration item. And okay, so this is the first job under the configuration item, to identify the configuration item. Next, control. This is related to change. When any of new change uh, uh, requested by customer, or due to some internal reasons, let's suppose we have to fix some bugs and all, so we have decided to initiate a change request or something, that to be controlled, right? So the change request initiation is something else, but later stage like the cost, feasibility, uh, the impact ought to be analyzed, all to be analyzed, and definitely uh, in every organization or every project, we are well aware about, we have a certain change management, change control process or something like. So that kind of process is always in place. So we have certain independent entities that to be reviewed, that to be approved, like they will review, like someone is reviewing the from the feasibility perspective the change, some of the team will be responsible to ensure the kind of cost impact and all. So all to be engaged with each other, and the final result to be in a form of whether the change to be approved or rejected. And this is kind of control. So the controlling the change, what all is coming, whether those are acceptable or to be rejected, this to be considered as a control part. Next, status accounting. Let's suppose if change is in progress and during the time in between, the status time to time status to be checked, whether the change is in draft state, in review state, where it is stuck, whether it's been rejected or approved, and accordingly others team to be informed for their preparation and acting. So this is the next task, status accounting, and this is the continuous task to be happen. Auditing. Auditing you can consider like it's kind of three phases, like the functional audit, the testing that we have performed, um, this to be audited, like the final output is expected, the functionality of the final product is as expected. The physical audit you can consider like the documentation perspective, whether the documentation, relevant documentation is updated as per the new release or new version that going to be released. In process software baseline audit, this is also a kind of audit. This is a continuous process in between, when the change is in progress, during the time to time this kind of auditing has happened. So during when the audit is happening, at that point in time, if something is being changed, whether the respective changes is being reflecting, for example in documents and or code and other sections as well. So this in process software baseline audit you can consider like this way. This is something like the release management and delivery, and this is something like the packaging product and delivered to the customer. So and the last is some tool. So obviously tool is also part of the configuration management for the tracking and all, for the change tracking and all. um, what all tools those are available in the market, which tools is suitable for meeting our expectation to be identified and adopted. So tools you can consider like a individual, like project related or organization related. So individual tools means like the tool for the version control, like some changes happen that to be tracked and managed, and later stage if someone is want to retrieve some old version and all, so we would be in that position to recall or retrieve the previous version as well. So this is kind of individual tools. So I believe here you can consider like the tools when we are talking about the individual tools like version control. And there are many other tools that is required in a project management or very specific to configuration management, right? So, but here the individual part is like a tool, and the tool that is related to version control that help to the developer in terms of manage the code history, like tracking the change history and all. So this is something um, like the version control comes under the tool, and that tool is one of the tasks comes under the configuration management. So in general, I think now you can understand when a new project is introduced, project management comes into the picture, and during the project management, one of the tasks is like configuration management, and the role of the configuration and management is like we have to define certain processes and policies, identify certain tools for what? Just to record, track, and control and audit configuration of the project. So what exactly the configuration means? During this phase, we have to identify the configuration items. What exactly the configuration item is, like the item that each and every item though that is associated with the project, for example, like code document, but we consider that item as a configuration item for that project if that item directly or indirectly impacting the end result, right? So this is the configuration item. So obviously the first job is to identify what all the configuration item um, to be considered, and once we have identified, then how we can control the change. Respective processes and policies supposed to be defined. Status of accounting, like to track whether the accepted changes uh, is in which stage and who is working on, whether this is in draft and review or rejected or something. Because of change occurring or reporting the change is the continuous process. So one change is reported, somewhat like some at point in time team is working on a specific change, meanwhile some other change is reported, that to be tracked in auditing. Auditing is final when the out product is about to deliver or deployed in the production. So the auditing part is like whether the functionality is as expected. A physical audit, like the document is available. So in between also this process will continue like to check. So any point in time, and it doesn't means like okay at the final stage when we have done all the changes and all, then only we will update the document. This will not work in the project management side. So each and every step that we are doing, if that action required to be changed in a document, be supposed to. Then release management and delivery, and the finally tool is also the crucial part of the configuration management, where like version control, how things to be like to track and manage the changes and all. So here the version control is involved. So we have to identify um, or explore the market and the need and the it depends on the organization and the project demand or need, what version control tool that we supposed to find from the open market and to adopt in the organization. So I hope we are able to understand the configuration management and the Git relation. So Git is associated when the configuration management task is happening in project management, and during that time, and to ensure the configuration management, we organization need certain tools for version control. Then they explore which version control is best suited for their project and organizations. Here the Git and other version control systems comes into. Okay, moving to the next slide. Okay, this is very specific to Git. What exactly the Git is? Git is a open source distributed version control system. So let's consider this is open source. So it means like the Git is released under general public license GPL. So we can download the source. Sorry, download the source code also. We can make we can customize the code and basis on our need. And this is something like distributed version control. So we can split this distributed version control in two parts. It's a distributed and version control system. So as we understand, like version control system is a demand of every project and organization for ensuring this configuration management, right? So so this is a version control. So every project management Git kind of tools supposed to be um, considered and distributed. So from the distributed perspective, in next slide we will explain this thing so that we can understand what exactly the means of the distributed. But here we can consider Git is a open source, so there is no licensing is required. We can simply download and started using and even customize. And the purpose of this tool, track the changes of the project and set of files. So let's read this. It is designed to handle small and large with high speed and efficiency. So the key intent of introducing the Git, Git can be work on a small or large project, but the key intent is to ensure the high speed and efficiency. So comparative to other version control system, Git is comparatively faster than others. It manages project or set of files as they change over a time. So the version control, this is the version control, Git is the version control. So as usual, any version control is role is to 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 manage project or set of files. Those are change in a change on over time. So as like any other version control, so Git will also ensuring this. Git is developed to coordinate the work among the developer. Here Git is also capable, like not only to the ensuring the tracking and files, but this is also extending the features or functionality in terms of coordinating, like on a single project if multiple developers are working, so how they can coordinate with each others. This is also this functionality we can also utilize when we started using the Git. Git is a foundation of many services like GitHub and GitLab. So we will discuss in detail, but here we can consider like somehow GitHub is dependent on the Git. Okay, GitLab also dependent on the Git. So you can consider this part in this way. The version control allow us to take the changes and work together with our team members in the same workspace. That I explained earlier, this is the same one. Okay, so all the information, because of as we explained, this is Git is used to track the changes, right? Changes in a project or manage the changes in a project or set of files over a time. But the information is being stored by Git in a specific data structure that is called a repository. Repository is a data structure, you can say, like which is used to store the information. Okay, in a nutshell, we can see this diagram where it is very much clear why Git. So you can see like it's open source, it's speed because of it's faster than others. It's security. Git is very much secure because this is using as such one functions um, for for saving all the um, meta information like the commit and all. So this is very much secured. So when we are retrieving informations for any of stage, this will also use a checksum for retrieving. So this is the secure one. Distributed, and this part I'll cover in the next slide. Scalable. This this is scalable in terms of when number of users is increased, so there is no challenge. We can easily manage or we can scale up to any number of users that those can use. Branching, this is also facilitate for the branching, like um, we can spawn a new branch whenever we are working on any of new bugs or new features we supposed to develop. So branching facility is also providing by Git. It's a trendy in the sense like this is a hot version control system which is um, very widely acceptable and is very much started using. Almost all of the organization is trying to switch on Git. So it's very trendy. Local repository. This is the key. I would say it's core concept of the Git local repository. Like the repository, each and every changes is also being stored in in the user's local desktop. So it's kind of local repositories is being managed. Collaboration, obviously, the multiple user working on the same project, if they want to collaborate or want to exchange their development work with others to integrate them, that can be happened. So it's like collaboration is also clean history. Like history, we can clean also. Okay, so these are the key features. Now GitHub. We can just consider Git is a command based open source distributed version control system. Now even Git is coming with the GUI also. We have a lot of GUIs available, but mostly the user is preferred to use the commands in terms of interacting with the Git repository. So the GitHub is that there is no direct relation with Git, but GitHub is a cloud-based service which is which you can consider as a kind of repository hosting platform. Like by using Git, you can create a repository. You can uh, track all the changes. Like you can um, save all the track change history in that repository and files and all. And if you want to share the same uh, on GitHub, then GitHub is giving us a platform to share our repository on a uh, on GitHub. So others can also because of this is a GUI based environment and hosted on a cloud. So any other person, if that is that one is willing to contribute something on the project, if this is a public repository, if you want to share the code and all, the code is open source, then that they can contribute even. GitHub comes in a two format, like standard edition and community edition. So community edition has certain restrictions as usual. Enterprise editions have some more features and okay. So GitHub you can consider like a cloud-based Git repository hosting environment where you can host your uh, Git repository. Also, it has some others features as well, like the we can create organization, users, role kind of things. These are the additional things, and you can also consider GitHub is also provides some UI environment where you can create a Git repository as well. Okay, so you can create a Git repository in a cloud-based environment or GUI-based environment. You can manage them. You can create a user. You can create a user, assign the role, like who will can contribute, who can read, who can like the read only kind of access you can give to the user, right? So these are the things that we can understand, then that we can relate to the GitHub. So just to summarize, like Git and GitHub, um, uh, directly both of the product. Those are managed by different organizations. Git is being owned by Linux Foundation, while the GitHub is by now after 2018, it is being owned by Microsoft Foundation. Earlier, this was being managed by GitHub itself. So GitHub is because of by using Git, you can work independently. You can like create your local repository. You can perform all your jobs. You can save all your change history and all. And if you are willing to share your repository uh, to allow to others to contribute in your code, that you can host your repository in the GitHub. GitHub is allowing us, right? And GitHub is a separate platform, and that is also offering some GUI based environment for creating a Git repository as well. So this is also the additional feature. Okay, so moving to the next. Okay, so in earlier slide, I was talking about the Git is a distributed version control system. So version control systems is a part of configuration management, and now we understood version control system is required to track the changes or change history, to manage the change history, right, along with the set of files. Now we are talking about the distributed version control system. So distributed. Distributed in a sense you can consider like a project name is a P1, and this project has three modules, M1, M2, and M3. And within the organization we have a team that has three individuals like user 1, user 2, and user 3. And the organization provided three workstation, one for each user. So you can see likewise. Now you can see the repository. Each workstations like the user who's supposed to start working on a module associated on the project, user has to create a repository on a local machine. And the Git, so for doing this, first user has to download the Git version from the respective site, and that need to be installed, and then create a directory, and within the directory user has to run git init command, and this command will create a .git folders. In the same folders user has to store all their working content that user is supposed to change in a time to time, and that to be tracked. So each user has a local repository associated to a project module, and on project modules user independently working on. Right, so each user is working on a separate module, but all three modules are shooting on the same project, and each user is saving their work in a repository which is locally created in their workstations, right? Now the collaboration part. So here by using this you can see like the version can be tracked, like history can be easily tracked, and whenever the user is want they can retry the previous version, right, of their module. So this is very much easy. Now the part is how, if at the end all three module to be merged and the final product to be tested, right? So the collaboration is required, and the collaboration, from the collaboration perspective, Git itself provide two protocol to communicate with others like HTTP and SSH. So for example, like the two desktop, if the workstation 1 is supposed to communicate with workstation 2 with the user 2, like module 1 and module 2. So in this case, they can communicate by using SSH command, the SSH protocol. So they can share, compare, and merge kind of things, right? So this is something, the one aspect. And here you can see the other aspect is like in a central repository we are talking about, like GitHub. GitHub is a hosting environment where um, the initial project, before it started working, the baseline version, we supposed to um, uh, shared on the central repository, or we can say kind of GitHub, right? And each and every user, those are making the changes in their respective module, they can push the changes into the central repository in GitHub. And because this is a central and available for others as well, so each and every user directly started communicating to the central repository, and where they can contribute, or we can pull the code in their local repository, and it started working. Let's suppose in an in every day when the user 2 is started working, right? So the first job is to pull the code, right? Pull the code from where it is going to pull. The user 2 workstation 2 or user 2, you can consider like they can pull the code directly from any of a specific user. If this user 2 is well aware about, like something was being changed, and the change was done by user man, so they can interact with the other workstation using the SSH protocol. But uh, but if we have multiple users, then definitely they have to communicate manually, like they did some changes and that to be shared with the others, and they need to compare with each other. So this is somewhat like a uh, the Git is allowing us, but it's somewhat is a bit hard. So resulted, the GitHub is facilitating us to overcome this problem by pushing the code in central repository or remote repository. This is we call as a remote repository, where the user can any of user can contribute and pull their code in a local repository, and user only has to work on the local repository. For example, at any point in time, if this remote repository is not available due to some network reason and all, then also user one is not at all impacted, because of they have their local copy. All the versions uh, uh, and the change history they can find out or track in their local machine itself. So the local repository, uh, uh, local repository they have. So the, these features like local repository and the remote repository is the concept. So this is the this we call as a distributed version control system. So it means like every user can work independently without creating any dependency on the central server or remote server, right? Whether the central server is available or not. While if you compare the same thing with the SVN, then SVN user is working on if we are adopting the Git, then there is no such dependency. Even in absence of network, in absence of the servers, user can continue to their work. Even in case the central repository crashed or something, then also the same version, the version and the change history is also stored in the local machine in a form of local repository. So since every user is having their own copy that can be restored or pushed at any point in time when the remote server is available. So this is kind of backup and all. So distributed version control system is means like every user is having their own local repository and there is no dependency on the remote server. Irrespective of whether the remote server is available or not, the user can continue to perform their work. So this is the um, very good features you can consider as a kind of model um, mm, the Git is based on. and uh, and triggering most of the customers to adopt it. Okay, so here in quickly we can compare the Git and GitHub. So you can see as I explain all the things, Git is installed locally and every user who is supposed to start working on a Git download the respective Git version from the Git side and install them locally. And if someone is willing to start working on a GitHub, they need not to download anything on locally. And in fact, they can visit on the GitHub site and where they can create their account and create the repository as well. And for Git, the first version released in 2005, while the GitHub company launched the GitHub platform in 2008. Git is maintained by Linux Foundations, while you can see like the earlier to 2018, it was being managed by GitHub. Now, since Microsoft acquired this GitHub platform, and since 2018, it's being managed by Microsoft by now. Focus of Git is to version control, as I explained, and code sharing, like collaboration, like multiple user can work together on a single code. So this is along the codes code sharing. The GitHub is focused for centralized source code hosting. This is the focusing area of GitHub, kind of providing a hosting platform where the Git repositories can be hosted. Primarily, Git is a command based, which is very popular and most of the users prefer to use command line uh, version of the Git. And this is a completely cloud-based, web-based version. So here, when you started working in a GitHub, no need to learn the command. Even you have some GUI platform by using that, you can accomplish your work. Now Git is also providing some desktop interface GUI based, and GitHub is also providing some desktop version of GUI based. Git directly do not have any user management because of any user uh, who is willing to start working on a Git. We need only one single machine where the user has to download a Git software and install that on a local machine. Create a folder, run a command, and the repository will be created. In that repository, they can contribute their work. Right. So there is no user management features available in Git. Every user work independently. While in GitHub platform, user management features is available where you can create a user. That user you can associate in an organization, and you can also assign a certain roles, kind of like this particular user, or even you can create a group as well. That group of users cannot make a changes because of this is also a crucial things that to ensure. For example, in a testing team, should not have the right to make the changes in a source code. So this is the built-in user management feature provided by GitHub. Git is just providing two protocols like if the Git user is willing to communicate to others, they have the options to communicate like SSH and HTML, HTTP protocol, and integrating Git with other tools like if you are integrate with the Maven, if you are integrate with the Jenkins or other DevOps tools, so or many other tools. So very limited configuration features is available in Git side. Well, the integration GitHub is active marketplace for tool integrations. So GitHub, you can integrate GitHub with various uh, DevOps tools. So the same features is not available with the Git. For example, if you are started, suppose or you are planning to start working on Jenkins or some other platforms or DevOps tools, then you have to switch to GitHub because of GitHub provide the options that can be integrated with that tool, but directly Git you cannot. Git is competing with subversion like SVN and CVS, but these have certain drawback, kind of speed, and they have central servers and all. And Git is introducing distributed versions, control systems, and all. So this is competing. And the competitor of the GitHub, you can see like Bitbucket and GitLab. Open source license, GitHub is coming or in two variants like community edition and the enterprise edition. You can see like Git is written in C, Shell programming and Perl and Python, and while the GitHub is written in Ruby, Go, C, and ECMAScript. So Git is a typical version control system, while the GitHub is collaborative version control system, Git repository hosting systems. You can consider like this way. So in short, you can say this is the command. It's a command line based tool managed by Linux Foundations, released in 2005. Install every user has to install locally. No user management features. Very limited external tool integration and open source. And obviously, this is the alternative version control systems like SVN and CVS is competing with this. GitHub is a cloud-based, is a separate company. GitHub launched this in 2008. Now it's being managed by Microsoft, and this is a kind of repository, Git repository hosting platform. Git is also providing kind of GUI interface. Using that, we can create a Git repository. We can. This is also providing some user management kind of functionality, where we can segregate kind of teams within the organizations, like the team, testing team, development team, and we can also assign the access control, kind of read only or can read and write access and all that we can control. The key competitor is with Bucket and GitLab. So I think hope you're clear on Git and GitHub. So here the answer is if the question is like whether the Git and GitHub directly related or both are the same, so we can say like Git and GitHub, those are not exactly the related, but yes, for effectively if we want um, to utilize some collaboration and all, um, we can use Git and GitHub collectively, right? So, but both are being associated with different organization. Okay, so here you can see the same thing. and at the, I think this is the last slide, and I'm just trying to conclude Git, GitHub, and GitLab. All these three are not the same. All three products developed and managed by different organizations. Git is a typical version control systems. Distributed version control system, I would say. GitHub is a collaborative version control system, and the role of these two uh, to provide some hosting services of repositories, and the same is GitLab. GitLab is a separate hosting platform, repository hosting platform, along with the version control system, and it's being managed by GitLab. So hope we are end of this sessions, and just to summarize um, what we learned so far, we are trying to associate what exactly the version control systems, how the version control system associated with the configuration management and project management, why the organization, at which stage organization preferred to use or looking for the version control system. If any of organization looking for any of version control system, what are the available options like SVN, Git and all, GitHub? What what the organization supposed to prefer to use, whether they switch to SVN or Git or GitHub. So we have learned in detail uh, how the organization supposed to select, and it depends on the organization need and the project need. Next sessions, I'm going to cover the Git installation